Hi, it's Ron, and I'm here with
Adriaan.
And Adriaan, you are with
K2.
K2, and you're more than just with K2. You're actually the your title is the.
I'm the CEO, one of the founders of the company. Yes.
Right. Okay. And so for everyone out there, maybe you could give a bit of a background on K2, if that would work.
Sure. We started about 10 years ago out of South Africa. A friend of mine out of university started the company and grew into Asia, Singapore, UK, South Africa, France, all around the world. Yeah.
Oh wow! Well, that's really neat. I'll just jump into the heart of the question that I want to ask, because we like to keep these videos relatively short.
Sure.
And one of the questions that come up all the time is your product is an add-on for the SharePoint product that's got a lot of traction out there right now. And the question comes up, it's around workflow. And when do we use the out-of-the-box SharePoint workflow and configure that and customize that for our scenarios versus choosing to go with a product like K2's product to manage the workflow? When does someone choose to go over to K2 as opposed to using SharePoint?
It's a good question, Ron, and certainly a question we get a lot. So there's a couple of points. I mean, one of the key things in answering that question is the starting point. K2 is not just an add-on for SharePoint; it actually stands alone completely on its own. And it's a fundamental point in the decision-making process. If you're going to do workflows that runs in the context of a SharePoint item. So think about a document or a list item or a form within SharePoint. Your starting point typically should be SharePoint. You say, well, let me look at the out-of-the-box workflows. Do they do what I want them to do? And if they don't, how complex would my needs be, and how expensive is it going to be to change the out-of-the-box workflows and develop new capabilities, rather than introducing an application like K2 which might make it easier and faster and less expensive and give me more capabilities. Okay. Now, at this point, it's simple math. It's not possible to fraction reality. So, if we look at this, probably about 75% of our customers will combine K2 with SharePoint 2010, which shows to you that there's a significant need for workflow BPM capabilities that exceeds what SharePoint does out of the box, and it needs to be customized and developed, and people need a tool that allows them to do it very quickly.
So as a product that's a standalone product on its own,
yes.
What's a scenario where I'm not using SharePoint and I'm using K2?
That's a good question. So we have banks, as an example, who will do a home loan process.
Yes.
So you go in, get a lot of forms to fill out, a lot of data that they want to capture about you, and they're going to send you through a fairly complex process in the back end to make sure that the house eventually gets registered in your name. That is not typically a process that originates with a SharePoint list item. It's a form that gets filled out, that talks to an enterprise back-end banking system, and that there's a lot of integration into those back-end systems.
So the document itself may or may not live within a SharePoint document library. It may be even starting in a Z drive, a network drive.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And certainly in those cases, documentation gets generated and will be stored in SharePoint. But the complexity of the process doesn't necessarily originate with creating a list item in SharePoint. So it's one example. We, as I mentioned before, about 75% of our customers will combine K2 and SharePoint. And we like that. We think SharePoint's a fantastic platform. K2 last night at TechEd won Best of TechEd as the best development tool to develop solutions on SharePoint.
Oh, that's great.
So it shows you how valuable the SharePoint platform is for us. Thank you. But to get back to your original question, when SharePoint and when K2, I think it's a decision about what your starting point is going to be and the complexity of the solutions. If you have a one-step document approval and you want to publish the document, you should use SharePoint. If you want to take that document, integrate data and information into it, send it for a number of different iterations.
And have it leave your own SharePoint document library,
come back
do
in,
a few circles and come back in.
Then K2 plays a pretty significant
gotcha.
role. The nice thing is that you can start with a product called K2 Blackpoint,
right?
Which is one of our offerings. It
Yeah.
integrates very closely with SharePoint,
Yeah.
and you can build out those solutions. And when you need more, you go up to K2 Blackpoint, and it's a seamless upgrade.
Okay, great. Well, let's leave it at there so we don't run this video long.
Sure.
And we'll do some more too. So,
Okay, yeah.
Where can people find you on the web?
worldwideweb.k2.com.
K2.com, and it's Ron, and I'm with knowledgetech.com.